Good day, ladies and gentlemen. For today's discussion, we will discuss all about the respiratory system. Objectives. At the end of this lesson, they will know and understand about respiratory system. They will also understand how respiratory system works, and they will be able to know about how does the respiratory system relates to physical education.
What is the respiratory system? The respiratory system is the network of organs and tissue that help you breathe. It includes your airways, lungs, blood vessels. The muscles that power your lungs are also part of the respiratory system. These parts work together to move oxygen throughout the body and clean out waste gases like carbon dioxide. The cells of human body requires a constant stream of oxygen to stay alive. The respiratory system provides oxygen to the body cells while removing carbon dioxide. The waste product that can be lethal if allowed to accumulate. There are three major parts of respiratory system: the airways, the lungs, and the body and the muscle of respiration. The airways, which include nose, mouth, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, carries air between the lungs and the body exterior. The lungs act as functional units of respiratory system by passing oxygen into the body and carbon dioxide out of the body. Finally, the muscle of respiration include diaphragm and intercostal muscles work together to act as a pump, pushing air out of the lungs during breathing. The respiratory system of the head and neck mark the strength of point from where oxygen enters the body. The system begins at the nose and mouth where oxygen is inhaled. The areas of respiratory in the head and neck allow air to flow in and out of the lungs. The important part of the respiratory system in the head and neck include the nasal cavity, which processes the airflow on its way throughout the lungs. Connected to the nasal cavity is the pharynx that is actually a part of the respiratory and digestive system. It allows for the passage of both food and air. It lies behind and to the sides of the larynx or voice box, which form part of a tube in the throat that carries air to and from the lungs, and house of aerosols, the aerosols and upright and allows air to pass throughout the larynx and into the rest of respiratory system. During swallow, it folds back cover the entrance of the larynx, preventing food and drink from entering the windpipe. The trachea or windpipe allows the head and neck to twist and bend during the process of breathing. The respiratory system of the upper abdomen and chest includes structure involved in the vital delivery of atmospheric air and the exchange of gases between the body and atmospheric air. The human body requires a constant supply of oxygen from the atmospheric, from the circular growth and metabolism that keep the body alive. At the same time, carbon dioxide that forms as a waste product of circular metabolism must be eliminated from the body and released into the atmospheric before reaching toxic levels. Atmospheric air enters the body throughout the mouth and nose and arrive in the chest throughout the trachea or windpipe. The trachea is a large open tube lined with rings of cartilage. The cartilage of the trachea provide a flexible rigidity that maintains an open airway to and from the lungs at all the time. It is inferior and the trachea branches into two bronchi that each enter one of the lungs. Inside of the lungs, bronchi further branches into several smaller secondary bronchi, which in turn further branch into many smaller tertiary bronchi, and finally branch into many tiny flexible bronchioles. These are passages collectively known as bronchi, tree and several to deliver air to the millions of tiny cups like alveoli found throughout each lung. Is only one of the respiratory system activities. The blood vessels requires a constant supply of oxygen for the metabolic process that are required to sustain life. The respiratory system collaborates with circulatory system to provide oxygen and remove metabolic waste product. It also aids in the blood H3 regulations. The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the atmosphere in the body cells is referred to as respiration. Nerve impulse stimulate the breathing process or ventilation, which move air through a series of passage into and out of the lungs every 3 to 5 seconds. Following that, there is a gas exchange between the lungs and the blood. This is known as external respiration. The gases are transported to and from the tissue cells by the blood. Internal respiration is the exchange of gases between the blood and tissue cells. Finally, the cells use oxygen their specific activities, which is referred to as circular metabolism or circular respiration. When combined, these activities constitute respiration your muscles demand. Just like regular exercise, make your muscles stronger. It also makes your lungs and heart stronger. As your physically fit improves, your body becomes more than efficient at getting oxygen into the bloodstream and transporting it to the working muscles. That's one of the reasons that you are less likely to become short breathing during exercise over time.
What are the parts of respiratory system and its function? First is nose. It is the only part of the respiratory system that is visible externally and is the route for air entry into the respiratory system. Second is pharynx. It collects incoming air from your nose and passes it downward to your trachea or the windpipe. Third is larynx. It contains your vocal cords. When moving air is breathed in and out, it creates voice sounds. Fourth is lungs. The lungs are the organs in which external respiration takes place through the extremely thin and delicate lung tissues. Fifth is trachea or the windpipe, the airway that leads from the larynx to the bronchi. Next is bronchi, are the large tubes that connect to your trachea and direct the air you breathe to your right and left lungs. Next is bronchioles, are the air passages inside the lungs that branch off like three limbs from the bronchi. Next is the alveoli, are the very small air sacs that are destination of air that you breathe in. And lastly, the diaphragm is the strong wall of muscle that separates your chest cavity from your abdominal cavity. By moving downward, it creates suction to draw in air and expand the lungs. So basically, how does the parts of respiratory system function? I will explain it to you. By the breathing process that starts from our nose, it is the only visible part of the respiratory system wherein the air can enter to our nose. And our nose has four parts. First is nostril, second is nasal cavity, third is mucous membrane, and lastly the cilia. The air will enter to the external opening of the nose or known as our nostrils, and then pass to our nasal cavity, which is inside part of our nose. While inside of our nasal cavity, we have the mucous membrane that is aligned, which produce mucus. Mucus is the moist and sticky that captures coming in dust, germs, and small particles to our lungs that can also irritate our lungs. Nose. While inside of our nasal cavity, we have the mucous membrane that is aligned, which produce mucus. Mucus is the moist and sticky that captures coming in dust, germs, and small particles to our lungs that can also irritate our lungs. These branches that split from trachea and merge into smaller tubes called bronchioles, which bronchioles deliver air to our alveoli. And then the alveoli is the air sacs that located in the end of our bronchioles and surrounded by blood capillaries where gas exchange occurs. As you inhale, oxygenated air is pulled into bronchioles. Carbon dioxide collected by the alveoli is then expelled from the lungs as you exhale. During our breathing process, the diaphragm is busy as well. Diaphragm is like a dome-shaped structure that separates the chest and the abdomen. If we inhale, our lungs expand and our diaphragm moves downward. While we exhale, our diaphragm relax and return to its normal shape. In summary, the respiratory system is composed of different organs that are responsible for gas exchange. These branches that split from trachea and merge into smaller tubes called bronchioles, which bronchioles deliver air to our alveoli. And then the alveoli is the air sacs that located in the end of our bronchioles and surrounded by blood capillaries where gas exchange occurs. As you inhale, oxygenated air is pulled into bronchioles. Carbon dioxide collected by the alveoli is then expelled from the lungs as you exhale. During our breathing process, the diaphragm is busy as well. Diaphragm is like a dome-shaped structure that separates the chest and the abdomen. If we inhale, our lungs expand and our diaphragm moves downward. While we exhale, our diaphragm relax and return to its normal shape. In summary, the respiratory system is composed of different organs that are responsible for gas exchange. In relation with the parts and the functions of our respiratory system to the physical education, during or in doing our exercise or any physical activity, or even in sports, the respiratory system and its function still exists. Because when you exercise, doing physical activities, and engaging in sports, our body uses oxygen and produce carbon dioxide to cope up with its extra demand or need in breathing. In addition, when you're physically active, your heart and lungs work harder to supply the additional oxygen your muscles demand. Just like regular exercises makes your muscles stronger, and also it makes your lungs and heart stronger too.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Johnny Gamutan Luzano, and this is how the respiratory system works. As a person inhales, the diaphragm contracts and moves downward. The space left in the chest allows the lungs to expand. Muscles in the ribs also help enlarge the chest cavity, pulling the rib cage upward and outward. Once the lungs expand, air moves in through the nose and mouth. The air travels down the trachea and into the lungs, allowing a person to breathe. The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide occurs before exhalation. When a person exhales, the diaphragm relaxes, the lungs recoil, and the air moves out of the lungs. What happens to my lungs when I exercise? So ano ba ang mangyayari sa lungs natin pag tayo ay nag-e-exercise? During exercise, two of the important organs of the body come into action, the heart and the lungs. The lungs bring oxygen into the body to provide energy and remove carbon dioxide, the waste product created when you produce energy. The heart pumps the oxygen to the muscles and that are doing the exercise. When you exercise and your muscles work harder, your body uses more oxygen and produces more carbon dioxide. To cope with this extra demand, your breathing has to increase from about 15 times a minute, 12 liters of air when you are resting, up to about 40 to 60 times a minute, 100 liters of air. During exercise, your circulation also speeds up to take the oxygen to the muscles so that they can keep moving. When your lungs are healthy, you keep a large breathing reserve. You may feel out of breath after exercise, but you will not be short of breath. When you have reduced lung function, you may use a large part of your breathing reserve. This may make you feel out of breath, which can be an unpleasant feeling, but it is not generally dangerous. So next we have the three effects of exercises on the respiratory system. First is increases your heart rate. If you are exercising or performing any kind of activity, your heart will normally beat faster. This allows your heart to pump blood throughout your body to provide oxygen to the tissues. If you are experiencing fear, anxiety, or stress, your heart rate will increase. Second is it strengthens your respiratory muscles, just like aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise has the most benefits for your heart. Over time, aerobic exercise can help decrease your heart rate and blood pressure and improve your breathing. Exercise helps strengthen muscles, a combination of aerobic workouts, which depending on your fitness level, can include walking, running, swimming, and others vigorous heart-pumping exercise, and strength training, weightlifting, resistance training is considered best for heart health. So the third is allows your lungs to deliver more oxygen. So what will happen to the oxygen in the lungs? Of course, makakahinga tayo ng mabuti because your lungs deliver oxygen and remove carbon dioxide from your blood in a process called gas exchange. Gas exchange happens in the capillaries surrounding the alveoli where the oxygen that breathed in enters the circulatory system and carbon dioxide in the blood is released to the lungs and the breath out. Also, the cardiovascular endurance, it is the ability of the heart, lungs, and blood vessels to deliver oxygen to working muscles and tissues, as well as the ability of these muscles and tissues to utilize that oxygen over an extended period of time with moderate intensity. That's all. Thank you. Good afternoon.